how to mix bleach up and pop it on. Okay, so literally once you've got your, obviously once you've combed through, and if it's long hair, you've put your shine spray on and you pulled your cap down, so as far as you can go. You will find there may be just a slight little bubble on that crown, but where you can, try and keep that down and taut while you pull it. Okay, so you're literally going to hold your highlighting hook in your hand, and you're going to go in at a slight angle, so you're not going in obviously straight down, you're going to go in sort of 45-degree angle. We're going to start on the top at the crown. You can start pretty much anywhere you go, really. You can start at the bottom and work up. I always sort of work from the crown in a bit of a spiral and then work down through to the head. Okay, and obviously on here I'm going to pull through every hole. Some of these caps have got more holes in, so you might only want to pull through every other, but for these definitely we're going to pull through every hole. You can see, so I'm going to work round in a bit of a spiral fashion, so you can see, so I'm keeping that hook in at about 45 degrees so I can go in gently and slowly, so you're not stabbing obviously like that onto the scalp. You're going to be using the side of the hook against the scalp, so hopefully you won't puncture the client's scalp while you're doing it. Obviously, as you can imagine, you're going to have to be quite gentle as you go in. You know, if you go in too quickly or too fast, it's going to hurt that client, which is, like I said earlier, it's a useful tool to actually practice on each other. Not obviously, you don't have to have the product on, but just to pull through, just the pulling through of the cap, just to see how that feels on that client's head. So we're going to go through, and obviously you're allowing that hook to pick the amount of hair so it's an even time. What you don't want to do is have, I'm going to pull one through a bit thicker on this one to show you. What you don't want, if I turn that round, is obviously you want them to be nice and even. You can see that those two there, this one's practically double of what you've pulled through there. So you don't want that, you want it to be nice and even. Okay.
What do you do if you do that? You can put the hook under, of course.
You can, yeah, you can. What you want to do is try not to. And the only I had to go in 2 or 3 times to do that, so you're not likely to. Obviously, that's the reason why the hooks are different sized. If you want obviously a fuller look, then you would go with a bigger hook. If you want a real natural fine look, you'd go with a finer hook. Okay. So obviously you're allowing. You just.
Size.
What? Sorry. This is a 1mm, so you can get obviously all different sizes as you'll have a look. I mean, you can see this 1mm. I think is probably a good average sized section of hair to highlight. Obviously, again, it depends on what hair you're working on. If you're working on someone that's got quite fine hair, you're going to obviously want a finer highlight. If you've got quite thick hair, you can get away with a more chunky, I was going to say weave, but chunky pulled through.
But will you notice this when they have the hair down? Will you notice it as much?
Well, you'll see that. What you'll obviously, that's the advantage of you doing it today, because we're going to use bleach on the head, so you can see where you've been, and it can show you the look of how it's going to look. And then next week we're going to move on to foil highlights, so you will notice the difference.
Can we use the bleach next week as well, right?
We are, yeah.
So can I bring a different head for next week?
Yeah, yeah, we can. The reason, generally, sometimes we do one practice run with conditioner on the foil, but I'm going to go straight in with bleach, simply because you've actually only got 2 weeks of practice with foils before you actually go onto a client session. So I think it's really useful, because especially with foils, less so with this, but with foils you'll find that if you're not careful, you'll get bleeding, and if you don't use the bleach, you don't have any idea that you're going to get that, and then obviously you'll go to do it on a client having never done it with bleach, you know, on a tuition head, and sometimes you'll get that. So it's a really good tool.
Even hairdressers nowadays,
absolutely.
Not necessarily what you've done wrong.
No, obviously when we go through that next week, I'll tell you how to avoid that. But you're absolutely right. There'll be hairdressers.
When I was at my salon, someone said, "Oh,
it's the product."
Just leave it."
Oh
my God, her head's bleeding.
Yeah, when I mix the bleach up in a minute, I'm going to talk about how the product works. But no, what happens basically with a bleach, when it oxidises, which is basically how it works, it swells. So you'll notice tonight when you're working with it, it'll get sort of aerated in your bowl and it'll go.
It's like a mousse.
Goes quite, yeah, like a mousse, like foam. Starts to look like, and that's basically where it's basically where the oxygen from the air is going into it and oxidising it, which is how it works in the hair. And it swells up as it does that. So obviously, basically, that's what bleeding is when you put either too much in the packet or you've gone too high up on the packet. When you've got to allow for that to expand, and if you don't, it obviously expands up and out the top of the packet, which is hence what we call bleeding. And I don't take it as a thing, but probably majority of people in this room will do that next week for the first time, and you'll see what I mean. It sort of spurts out onto the scalp, and you'll get like a smudge of colour on the root. Some of you may have had your hair coloured yourselves and had that done, and you've got an area where you sort of generally it seems to always be on the side or sort of underneath the crown. But yeah, so we'll talk about that a bit more in depth next week. But
unless the customer knows what it is themselves, they don't necessarily notice it.
Well, it depends where it is as well. It also depends where it is. But I mean, you can correct it. Obviously, you can correct it with colour. You can correct it, but you want to try to avoid doing it really. So for the purpose, just for this demo, I'm going to stop there. But obviously, I'm going to want you to go all the way round and all the way down. So what I'm just going to show you how you work about the whole head. So as you move down the head, guys, as you move down the head, obviously you're going to go right to the front hairline and right round the ear. So as far as you can go, and obviously if you can't see anymore, like I say, it's handy if you tuck behind it. This is quite short. But so use your fingers to feel where the ear is and go to your nearest point around it. Okay, and you're going to follow the head shape, follow down, and follow to the back of the hairline. Okay, you will find it hard to see where the hairline ends, so you do literally, you'll know when you get down to the bottom, you'll see, because you'll just get little short bits that come out. So once you've gone past the hairline, you'll be able to sort of feel it when you know you've gone further than the hairline goes. And obviously bear in mind when that's a person, then you're digging on their skin. Okay, so you're going to, obviously tonight I'm going to want you to do all that around the ear, down to the back, around the nape and back round the ear. So you're going to do the whole head, but I'm going to stop there just to show you how to mix your bleach. That's my old brush there. You can just grab that from the
Do it really quickly.
We're going to make sure we've got our PPE on, guys.
That doll with
If you were having light highlights, you wouldn't put bleach on normally.
Yeah. Basically, a bleach, the difference, I don't want to go too much into this, but basically the difference between a bleach and a tint is the degree of lift. So with a tint, you're limited to only a certain amount of shades of lift. With a bleach, it's unlimited. So obviously you can, it's not always, it's quite hard to, but you can basically lift from, you know, a base 2-3, so very, very dark, to the lightest base you can get. But obviously you would have to do it in stages, and it's not great for your hair. But your bleach is literally just gonna, all it does with the bleach, just removes the colour pigments in the hair, whether they be natural pigments or coloured pigments. They will remove the colour pigments from the hair, leaving obviously ultimately hopefully a blonde. But tonight you'll probably find on these that you probably won't get past sort of like a sort of a copper. You probably, some of you may, but the majority of you, if they're quite dark, you'll find it hard to lift past that copper. And whereas a tint will, when you're doing lighter colours, again I don't want to go too much into it, when you're working with lighter colours, your high lift tints will, their development time, half of the time they lift and then half of the time they add tone to the hair. These don't add anything to the hair, they just take out. So obviously that's the difference.
What happens when somebody comes in and they just want their roots touching up with that?
Yeah, I'll show you when I apply. Yeah, because obviously this, as you can see, that our colour we've got today hasn't got anything at all. Hasn't got any blonde in there.
So if you needed to do it, you know,
repeat the process, you wouldn't do it through the cap. It'd be quite difficult to get the
Yeah,
same blonde bits.
you would.
Yeah,
You
you
can get the same blonde bits, but it doesn't. You don't need to.
Oh, right.
You'll get some of the same and some that aren't. But what you do is basically when you apply it, you just apply it to the roots. So you would apply it just to where the blonde is.
Yeah, but how do you make sure you get the same bits through?
That's what she says, you don't combine.
Yes, that's what I just
You won't pull the same through, but you won't when you foil. When you foil, you'll find it very difficult to pick out the same.
So you
just
end up
weave.
putting more blonde in as well, don't you? So
Yeah.
it's ends
Well, you
up
don't
being-
because what you do is when you're doing a regrowth, you
Yeah.
only apply the colour to the root. So you wouldn't know because you're not putting any more in. You're just obviously
But you
lightening.
Yeah, but you might get some bits that
You do, but it
just
sort of
don't
all
work.
blends in. You'll see what once you do it, you'll see what I mean. You do.
You wouldn't know if you did this from the long bits and the small bits because they'll literally just blend into
No,
the hair. So
they'll
it's
just
like a
blend
bit
in.
of hair.
So obviously, because I've only got a little bit, I'm just going to use half a stick of bleach.
No, it's good. You're doing it
So I'm going to put my bleach powder into my bowl. That's debatable actually. There are little masks in the dispensary. I'm not using it today because I don't suffer with asthma or anything, any scary lung diseases or anything. But if you do, or you're a bit worried about the powder, because the bleach powder does tend to lift up and you'll find you'll sneeze or, they are there to be used. So do, if you feel the need, use the little mask there. If you suffer with asthma or anything like that, do make sure you use your masks, okay? And what I also with bleach is you can measure it. It's roughly about the same. So if you use a scoop of bleach powder, you use a scoop of peroxide. But when I'm doing foil highlighting or even cap highlights, I like to mix my bleach to consistency. So basically, I sort of a bit like how I make cakes really or anything. How I make batter pudding and things like that. When I make pancakes, I just do it to what I think's right. A bit of that, yeah, that's right.
So you're just using
So
a
bleach powder.
percentage to...
Yeah, so basically it's the same. So if you want to do it, obviously, which is how I advise you to do it, you're going to use 1 scoop of bleach powder and roughly the same amount of peroxide. So it's generally, again, it will change. So you may want to use, read your manufacturer's instructions, but generally it will be even ratio. So whatever you use of the bleach powder, you use roughly the same of your developer. Okay.
And then the higher
So you
percentage, the lighter it is again.
Yeah. I'm going on with a 40 because I'm on quite dark hair, but I have got a 30 and a 40 out. So again, I'll leave that up to you tonight to do what you want to do with that. I don't want to go too much into the theory of the colour. So choosing the right colour, choosing the right peroxide. You will do that in time. I just want you to actually go through the motions of applying the colour, the process of doing it tonight. So don't worry too much about that. And we will obviously go back over that in depth. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, like anything really, when you start, you're going to start in one area and work your way methodically through the hair. I always start at the front because I find it easier to start at the front and move backwards. But if you were doing hair that's quite fine or hair that's already quite light, obviously bearing in mind the hair at the front will be finer. So you may want to do that last, okay? So you could start on the crown or wherever you start, that's fine, just work through methodically. Okay, so what we're going to do, so if I just show you if it was a regrowth, you'd obviously what would happen is you'd have old blonde in here. So what you would do is just do exactly as you did when we did our root retouch with our permanent. You would literally just paint it on the root, and then what you do is use either your tail comb or the end of your brush just to separate it out, and you would literally just apply to the regrowth. Okay, and then you would leave it, so you'd obviously lift that up, and then obviously it would all blend in. Okay, and you'd be, majority of the time, most of that would be already blonde, but as you can see today we haven't got any blonde, so I'm going to take it all the way through. Okay, so I'm just going to use my hands to rest against to apply the product. Applying it to the root first and then taking it through the mid-lengths and then resting it against my hands. Okay. So you're just going to work your way through that section, methodically covering all the hair. That's so because I didn't pull all my through, I've not got a lot to do, so I'll just quickly work my way through there. I'm going to leave them there. So as you can see, you can use your use the head to rest against as you're applying that product.
Rachel, after apply this, when we the time end, then wash what we apply on the hair when they wash off.
How do you remove it?
Yeah, how to remove it and what
Yeah.
product we
Yeah, I'll talk you through that in a sec. You I'll just finish applying it. Right, so basically I've covered all my hair now. What you do have to do with any colour, especially when you're cap highlighting, so even if you're using permanent tint or bleach or whatever you're using, all hair products that change the hair colour will use oxygen to oxidise. Okay, so what you must do is lift it all up so that the air can circulate right the way through that hair. What will happen is if you leave it down like that, what do you think might happen?
Some bits get hotter than others, so the colour will be different.
Yeah, so you're going to get an uneven colour. What will happen is the air on the outside will oxidise this bit. The bits underneath you may well find that they won't get oxidised, so you'll get patchy colour. You'll get bits that are lighter, bits that are darker.
People get patchy bits on the back of the head.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, you must use, just lift that up off the scalp so the air can get right the way through it, and the oxygen can get right through that hair section and oxidise it all at an even rate. You may want to use a plastic cap. I personally don't, but you can if you're working on hair that's particularly resistant and you know it's going to take a while to lift. You can use a plastic cap to keep the heat in. You'd never use Climazone or any added heat with bleach because all it does is dry it out. So you always let it develop naturally. Whereas with tint, you can use a Climazone to speed up your development time, but you can't do that with bleach. You have to just let it.
They used to.
They did used to, and you'll still see people doing it. People will still do it. People still will do it, but they don't recommend it.
They're breakable, isn't it?
Yeah, the only reason it won't hurt. I mean, it's obviously more intense. Bleach is quite damaging to the hair anyway.
Speed it up.
But it speeds it up. But obviously, it just accelerates that damage. And also, what happens, I find, is you sort of almost fighting a losing battle because it just dries the bleach out. So actually, half the time, although the heat,
And then you're reapplying it.
yeah, you have to reapply anyway. So actually, sometimes you're better to just either use a plastic cap or just to be patient and give yourself extra
keeps
time.
the heat in.
It will keep the heat in, but what you mustn't do is obviously put the cap on and then squash it down. You must allow air to be able to get in, so don't pull it tight. You just obviously leave a bit of a gap on the top and then tighten it up. Okay, sort of round the edge if you like. But you would, you wouldn't pull that right down like you would this. Okay, so you're going to leave some oxygen. All right. So obviously, bearing in mind that then it's going to have its development time. With bleach, there isn't a specific development time. It depends on what colour the hair is to start with, what aim you're going for, how blonde you want it, etc., etc. You could be using it to pre-lighten or to prepare the hair for something else. So it depends what you're doing. So you would just keep checking it. With bleach, you just keep checking it every 10 minutes, and obviously until it's the desired effect. When it is, I'll just quickly talk through your removal. If I can just use your base and your one, though, just so that I have one. What you're going to do, I'm not going to take it off obviously because I want this to develop, but I'm going to show you. What you'll have to do to see if you can help each other and hold the heads. But what you would do is literally put the client into the basin and you will rinse off the product. Okay, you don't take the cap off, you just rinse the product from the hair over the cap. You get rid of that so then you can see what you're doing. If you're happy with the colour, because you may well want to tone after it. If you're happy with the colour, then you would just pop some conditioner onto the cap, try and detangle the hair a bit, then pull the cap off, okay? But like I say, I'm going to let this develop. What I will do later on in the session when you're up and running is once mine's ready, I may well call you back and show you how to do that. But obviously at the moment I want to leave that on to develop. Okay, so I will show you that again, but I just wanted to show you for the purpose of
How long do you leave it on for?
there is no development time. It depends on once you're happy with the colour,
Right.
Yeah, there's no set time. So
Okay.
you just check it every 10 minutes
Right, okay.
until you're happy with the colour. If it doesn't look the colour that you want, then obviously that's when you would reapply some more glue. Alright? Don't worry about that tonight though. Just
Wave, Bryony.